my name is Ryan Bresnahan. Today I'll be talking to you all on corrective exercise. Specifically, why that corrective on y'all's sheets, it says correct. Today it's going to be corrective exercise. Very similar, right? So what we're going over is going to be why corrective exercise, is important to implement across all populations that we work with. Whether it's a group fitness format or personal training format or a small group, whatever it is, it's very important to implement across all populations that we're working with. Next, we're going to go into what it is, and there's a ton of content being pushed out right now on social media sites such as Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I think that's great, but with a lot of content, there's going to be a lot of people that may not have the best interests of our clients or put out the most safe and effective exercises for us to use with who we're coaching, right? And then lastly, we'll be going over how to implement it effectively into our own training protocol. So I have two participants that are pre-selected. We'll have them go through the overhead squat assessment, which in my opinion is the best bang for your buck assessment. You can assess the whole kinetic chain starting at the ankle all the way up to the cervical spine. We'll assess them right then, find where they're inhibited, where they're underactive, and create a corrective program design for them. Before we get into that though, I want to tell you guys a little bit about myself. So I am currently a junior at Texas A&M, class of 2020. There we go. I've been training as a Cooper Institute certified personal trainer for 3.5 years now, as well as a National Academy of Sports Medicine corrective exercise specialist. I really enjoy training. I really enjoy helping people grow through fitness, as that's what I did for myself. I always grew up playing sports. I played bumblebee soccer just like everybody else. I played football in middle school and eventually specialized in track in high school. I ran the 4x4, which, whoo, that race is hard. Yeah, exactly. So I played all the sports, but it seemed like after my 18th injury, getting injured every year, I was tired of it. I was not performing well. I had injuries every year. Like I said, I was done. So around junior year in high school, I started taking it into my own hands to really figure out how I can implement and learn more about corrective exercise to get back on the field, get back on the track. And I started reading fitness articles, watching YouTube videos from reputable sources, reading books, and I got certified as a Cooper Institute personal trainer. I was actually, the Friday after high school graduation, I was enrolled in a one-day session course to get certified. Like I said, I really love helping people grow through fitness in this way. I've been personal training at the Rec for 1.5 years, total 2.5 years, as a personal trainer and corrective exercise specialist. With the story earlier, I'm actually not a big sports fan. I think it has to do something with all those injuries and all that. You won't catch me watching a football game on a Sunday. That's just the type of person I am. I'd rather be reading a book or something. What I will say though is I am a Dallas Cowboys fan. We the boys, we're going to go to the Super Bowl here pretty soon. That's right. We are America's team. I think we can all agree on that. That's right. Yep. Okay. Yeah. No one opposing that. All right. So yeah, like I said, I'd rather be reading a book or doing something on my own. I'm a very introspective person. My favorite book is The Alchemist. Who's read The Alchemist in here? Great book. Yeah, there we go. Great book. This also helped me find out that I wanted to do personal training and help people grow through fitness. It's a big book about following your purpose, staying on your dreams, and finding out what you enjoy doing daily. I also love being outside and hiking outside. This picture was taken in Colorado Springs at Garden of Gods. If you haven't been there, you need to go next week. It's a book of flight. You need to go there. It's a beautiful place. I love being outside again, just kind of getting very introspective out there. That's the type of person I am. So, we're going to dive into the why of corrective exercise. Why do we need it? Why do our clients need it? Well, to start off, we sit for an average of 13 hours a day according to PR Newswire. This adds up to 4,745 hours a year. This brings up two things. First, in my left hand, we should and we can change that. We are moving to a more active lifestyle, and I think that's great. That's what we do for a living. We help push people towards that lifestyle. Second thing it brings up in my right hand is, okay, how is this going to affect our body over time? Are we sitting with the best posture? I see some people slouching up, yeah? No, we're not. We like to have a forward cross in our shoulders. We have an upper cross syndrome. This will add up on the body over time in the form of dysfunction. We also sleep for an average of 8 hours a night, adding up to 2,920 hours a year. I'm not saying we should change that. I think we should get 8 hours of sleep. It's a biological process, right? I know there's some people in this room, though, that are not getting those 8 hours, more than 5. Y'all know who you are. You have some caffeine in your blood at all times. Trying to get some head nods. Yep. So, same thing in my right hand on this one. How is this going to affect our body over time if we're not sleeping in the best position? Are we sleeping straight with the lower back flat against the bed, or do we have a shoulder up and we're impinging, the mouth is open, and we're in some weird position? Because sometimes I wake up after going to sleep, I'm like, man, did I get in a fight? Did I fight someone while I was sleeping? That's how you feel sometimes, and that's going to affect the body over time. So out of the 8,760 hours in a year, 7,665 of these are spent in a stationary position. This is 87.5% every year. So if this is the breading of the cake, this is the cake mix here. Now we're going to put the icing on top, we're going to put the cherry on top. So if the majority of us in this room are 20, 21, 22, right? By the time we are 70, 71, 72, over the next 50 years, this is going to add up to 383,250 hours, 15,968.75 days, or the next 43.75 years out of the next 50 are going to be spent in a stationary position. That is a long time, y'all. Long time, 43.75 years. How is this going to show up in the body? It's going to show up in the form of dysfunction with that repetitive movement. This is why corrective exercise is necessary in what we do. Continuing on with why. Of course, what most people think of with corrective exercise is injury prevention. Very tried and true. We are trying to prevent further injury from occurring with our clients or classes. One thing I would say here is it's also injury management. We may have people coming to us with prior injuries on a rehab program out of a PT clinic. We want the knowledge and the tools to be able to manage those injuries and keep the client away from further injuries down the road, or those injuries leading to other injuries due to muscle compensations and detrimental movement patterns. Okay, safety should be our #1 priority with our clients. It also increases flexibility. This will be through lengthening via either static stretching or proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation or PNF stretching. We'll be going over both of these techniques later on. Main thing here, we're increasing extensibility of the muscle. It also helps with mobility. So think here, we're increasing range of motion at a specific joint or joint movement, multiple joints working together. If we're increasing range of motion, us and our clients are able to achieve better form in a certain exercise. That's what we want while we're working out, reducing injury, increasing muscle recruitment as well here. So think about it this way. If I have a scale of justice right here with 2 little plates, in my left hand I have an agonist. In my right hand I have an antagonist. So agonist is glute maximus, antagonist is iliopsoas or hip flexor, okay? So we have a tight hip flexor from all the time that we're sitting, those 43.75 years, right? Being in a stationary position. This is going to be overactive on the scale. It's weighing heavy on that muscle relationship. Glute maximus is underactive and not weighing heavy enough, not activating enough on that muscle relationship. With corrective exercise strategies, by implementing it, we then downregulate overactive muscle and activate underactive to achieve a balanced muscle relationship. Now that muscle relationship is acting upon the body how it should. We're increasing form and form capacity and moving how we should while lifting, while working out, okay? So that's what I just said, workout efficiency goes up. That's what we want with the class. That's what they pay us for. That's what they want out of the session. We also increase strength with corrective exercise. Think about if we're in a better form position, our muscle recruitment is acting upon the body how it should. We're firing those motor pathways, how they're designed to be fired. The muscle's ability to produce a force increases. We also increase hypertrophy. A lot of things, they all stack on each other. So if we're increasing the muscle's ability to produce a force, intensity goes up, volume goes up. With those two, we increase cross-sectional area of the muscle fibers, therefore hypertrophy. And of course, calories burned. We're lifting more weight, longer duration, more volume, better form, workout efficiency goes up. And of course, the big one. This matters a lot with me and my clients, as the majority of my clients are on a weight loss program. It's no secret that a big part of America, the adult population, even youth population, are overweight or obese. And me explaining this to them helps them get on board with why I'm including corrective exercise programming into what we do intra-session, okay? All these stack on each other, more calories burned, more weight lost, even with the hypertrophy. Lean muscle mass is very thermogenic, burning more calories during workout and while at rest, okay? So now we're going to move into what? First, we're going to start off with what is called the cumulative injury cycle. This is where injury starts in the body. So remember the example earlier, if we sit for 43.75 years, like I said, it's going to add up on the body in the form of dysfunction. So we have a muscle imbalance occurring. This will be like the psoas or glute maximus example, like I said earlier. With that muscle imbalance, we have tissue trauma when we move at that muscle imbalance. The trauma starts to occur at that tissue. When we have tissue trauma, we then have inflammation at that localized site. That's the body's main injury response there. Once we have inflammation, we then have little microspasms in those muscle fibers that occur as well. After those muscle spasms, we then have adhesions form. So let's take my left bicep. I have an adhesion or a trigger point or a knot, I'm sure you've heard these names, in that muscle fiber. In this example, I'm trying to have elbow flexion or elbow extension while doing a bicep curl. This muscle knot, this trigger point, is going to affect the way that I'm moving that weight, the way that it's acting upon my body. This is altering my neuromuscular control, right? It's altering the way I'm moving. This is where the cycle for injuries in the body starts and ends with another muscle imbalance occurring at the body. So I'm sure you've heard, even Ryan mentioned in his earlier presentation, if you find an injury, you want to look down or up or down the kinetic chain to find the origin of that pain or injury. So if my left knee is injured, it may be my right shoulder that is actually the origin of my left knee pain. In my walking gait, my body may be compensating and trying to take some torque off my shoulder and putting a lot of pressure on my left knee. The body's very resilient at protecting itself, and it wants to not feel pain. We move away from pain. This is where the cumulative injury cycle acts upon the body. So continuing on with what corrective exercise is, we're going to move into how to approach it, what we do with it. First, we identify a neuromusculoskeletal dysfunction. This will be through the overhead squat assessment or any other integrated assessment. Okay? All neuromusculoskeletal means is just body dysfunction anywhere in the kinetic chain. Step 2, we develop a plan of action or POA. This will be in the form of programming. Putting pencil to paper here, we found out where our client compensated, where the dysfunctions are. Okay, now how are we going to address it? How can I address it during the session? Which is step 3, intra-session addressment, okay? Big thing here on step 3, first we want to have a why for what we do. Whenever I started out, right after I got my corrective exercise cert, I was so excited, I thought I knew everything, and I would put my clients on the foam roller for an hour on the quad, because it felt good for me. Well, if they don't need their quad rolled out, or the rectus femoris rolled out, then why am I doing that? Just because it feels good for me? No, we want to foam roll them on a specific muscle or activate a specific muscle because that's what we identify to be underactive or overactive in that case. Second thing being, how are we going to do that? Well, for me, I train my clients for an hour. I have a 10-minute warm-up, plus or minus a couple minutes, 40-minute work period, and then a 10-minute cool down. Again, should I foam roll them or do some just plantar flexion, dorsiflexion for an hour? No, that's not what they're paying me for. They're paying me for your strength, hypertrophy, or weight loss, or any of those goals. Me doing that is not going to help them achieve those goals directly. They're not going to enjoy the product. We're supposed to be selling them and giving them a great product, and that's what's going to keep them coming back. We need to remember that as trainers. Have a why, and then be smart about how we program it. So now we're going to move into what's called the corrective exercise continuum. This is step 2 of what we just went over, so our POA. This is another 4-step process, and it's going to be the last process today. Okay, I'm not going to fill your heads with a bunch of processes here. Step 1 is going to be inhibit. This is where all the overactive muscles identified fall into. So remember the example earlier I had, overactive psoas. If let's say our client has an anterior pelvic tilt and we've identified their psoas to be overactive, this would fall in step 1, which is inhibit. Step 2 is going to be lengthen. All overactive muscles identified in step 1 fall into step 2. We copy and paste there, okay? Step 3 is going to be activate. This is where all underactive muscles fall into, so we want to get them firing. Step 4 is integrate. We're putting it all together here. So starting out with inhibitory techniques, there's a ton of them. There's tons of them. There's self-myofascial release, which I'll refer to as SMR. There's chiropractic, soft tissue, a whole lot of them. Like I said, we're going to be focusing on SMR today. What is SMR? SMR is a flexibility technique used to downregulate overactive tissue. This happens through 2 pathways. First one being neuromuscular inhibition. We're putting pressure on a muscle, we're compressing it with any kind of modality there. That muscle sends a signal to the brain that it has a pressure on it, and the brain sends signals back to the muscle to down-regulate itself and stop being in that overactive state. Pathway 2 is going to be myofascial release, hence the name, self-myofascial release. So the myofascia, the fascia around the muscle, is a connective tissue. Remember that example earlier actually with my left bicep? I have that trigger point there, or that adhesion in that cumulative injury cycle. Well, that fascia is going to model itself along the lines of that soft tissue, along that muscle tissue. So that fascia is going to be adhesion, or have an adhesion there as well. So I'm going to have a trigger point there. So I get another form of compression, roll out that fascia, that fascia relaxes itself around the muscle and allows me greater access to that trigger point in the actual muscle tissue itself. So that one is more neuromuscular there. SMR can be done in many different ways. You can use a foam roller like I have on screen. I have some trigger points. There are even many different types of foam rollers. There are solid ones, which I'll refer to as level 1. There are hollow ones, these trigger points. Some have little ridges on them. And then there's level 3, which are like those rumble rollers, or the torture rollers, I like to call them. I don't like those things. Foam rollers are great because they hit a wide area of tissue, but they hit more of a superficial layer of your muscle tissue, right? Which sometimes we may want to start our client out at that. We may want to be hitting more of a superficial layer. You can also use balls. You can use a lacrosse ball, golf ball, tennis ball. These are great because they're very accurate where you're trying to roll out or inhibit, and they also get very deep into the tissue as well. Last one is going to be handheld roller. One of our trainers usually carries one around, which she does today. But handheld rollers are great because they hit a wide area of tissue, but you control how much pressure you're putting on. So remember I said I ran the 4x4 in high school, and I remember one time I ran the 400 in practice, and if you've ever ran a 400, you know that every time after you do, you contemplate why you're running track. You contemplate your life. It's horrible. So I was lying down on the ground, just wanting to cry and die all at the same time. And my teammate comes up behind me with the handheld roller. I was unsuspecting. And he comes behind me and spreads my legs out and just starts going ham on my hamstrings. And it was such extreme of, it felt so good, but it felt so bad at the same time. So handheld rollers are great because you control how much pressure you're putting on, and he was really controlling how much pressure he was putting on there. So, all right, step 2 is lengthening. So remember, all overactive muscles identified in step 1 fall into lengthening as well. We're going to need that later. So here, I mentioned earlier, we have static stretching and P&F stretching. Static stretching is just holding a stretch position of the muscle for about 30 to 90 seconds, right? Reaching down towards your toes. P&F stretching is a combination of extension or contraction and relaxation of a muscle. So if you've seen someone doing a hamstring stretch where I'd be grabbing someone's leg and I'm stretching them out for 10 seconds, and the next 10 they push against me, contraction, relaxation, and I re-stretch them after that. So just remember on that one, because there's tons of different ways to do it, with agonists, antagonists, all that. It's a combination of extension and relaxation and contraction of the muscle. Both of these have been shown by a study published in the Journal of Sports Rehab to increase range of motion at that specific joint action, which makes sense. If we're increasing the extensibility of the muscle, you're able to extend it farther in that range of motion here. One thing on lengthening, very important. So, I used to be anti-static stretch prior to exercise, and now it makes more sense to think about it. Okay, why am I having static stretch prior to exercise or during the warm-up? Okay, it's been shown in a couple of studies that static stretching can reduce power output before. It's true, yeah. If I have a power lifter, I'm not going to static stretch them before we work out, because the goal of the workout would be power production. But if I have a 60-year-old elderly woman who's doing aerobic training, and I still achieve the goal of the warm-up, which is increase heart rate and increase capillary density of the muscles that shoot blood flow, right? I can static stretch them before and still get their heart rate up, still get them moving with dynamic warm-up, and achieve the goal of the session there. Now moving into activation techniques. So think isolated movements, slow and controlled. We're really trying to activate a certain muscle or muscle group here. Isolated movements such as plantar flexion, dorsiflexion, working one muscle group. This can be done during the warm-up, as it does get the heart rate up. You are getting your body ready to work out. Makes sense. If we did this during the warm-up, would we want to have it in the beginning or towards the end? What do y'all think? Towards the end of the warm-up or towards the beginning? Towards the end? Why?
It's more specific to whatever it is you're going to be doing that day.
Okay. Yep.
So if you're going to be doing a squat workout, you wanted to get inspired beforehand, probably finish with that for your warm-up before you start squatting.
Okay. I would say towards the beginning. Reason being, we want to activate those muscles, but a lot of times depending, some of those isolated movements are not going to get their heart rate up much. Let's say we're doing glute bridges, or that example I keep using, plantar dorsiflexion, or maybe some abduction out with the leg. That may not get their heart rate up as much as we want it to. So doing that before, and then maybe moving into some A-skips, high knees, something like that, that'll get them ready, still activating those muscles, getting those muscles fired, specific to what we were working out that day. Big thing here, ask your client questions, don't tell them questions. I used to do something where I'd be training, I'd be like, hey Noah, do you feel it? Do you feel it? And my client would look at me and be like, yeah, I feel it. I was telling them where I'm feeling. If you ask them, hey, where are you feeling it? How does this feel? Let them tell you, oh, okay, I feel it in my core a little bit, I feel it in my biceps, my right bicep. You don't want to tell them. I did that so much where I would outline and then they nod because they don't want to say no or something. Let them tell you. And if you're cool enough with your client, you can say, hey, do you feel it, Mr. Kraft? Whatever's going to get them to talk to you, right? Whatever's going to get them to talk to you. Y'all know SpongeBob? All right. So integration is step 4. Here, we're doing full body movement. We down-regulated what we needed to, we activated what we needed to. Now we're able, or our client is able to move in a correct movement pattern and not have compensation act upon their body. So think neuronal priming, neuromuscular priming. Like I said, they don't have those compensations acting. Now's the time to get it moving correctly and ingrain that in their movement system pattern. This can be done right after addressing the problem, or especially over time as you implement corrective exercise strategies into your programming. This can be done during the warm-up or intra-workout. Warm-up, it makes sense because some of these integrated movements are like squats, maybe a deadlift here, or I guess for warm-up you do like a hip hinge or something like that. You're going to get the heart rate up and you're going to get multiple muscle groups firing, compound movements. Of course, intra-workout, we should be programming full body movements anyways, more towards the beginning, squats, deadlifts, RDLs, depending on your training goals, of course. This guy in the picture, he's looking like he's about to do a deadlift with a snatch grip, which if you've ever done one of those, horrible. I had to do those. Maybe he's doing an overhead snatch, something like that, a power clean. Like I said, compound multi-joint movements here, okay? So now we're going to move into the overhead squat assessment. First, I'm going to go over the form of the overhead squat. So this is according to NASM rationale. So overhead squat, make sure you can see me because this is going to be very important if you want to implement this with your clients. So stand up if you need to, do what you need to do. Step one, we're going to get our feet shoulder width apart directly. Second and third toes are going to be facing 12 o'clock directly forward, all right? So I'm right here. Next step, I'm going to get my hands out in front like so. This is a very important step, so listen up. I'm going to bring my hands together, and I'm going to say gig 'em. And then I bring my arms up, and then I open my hands. Now I'm there, so don't forget all the steps I just outlined. Here, I'm going to get 10 squats facing y'all, and you guys are probably picking apart my form right now. Sat in the car for 3 hours here, but just kidding. No one has a perfect overhead squat form, all right? Just remember that. So that is my anterior view. Checkpoints here. Shouldn't have moved. Gig 'em. You gotta say it. Are going to be ankles and knees. So looking for any ankle pronation in, ankle supination rolling out, ankle external, internal rotation. Looking for any knee valgus in or any knee varus out. So that's anterior view. You get 10 squats there. Then we move into lateral view. So I'm turning to the side. Gig 'em. Every time, y'all. You guys are looking at my lower back, my arms, and my torso, looking for any lower back flexion, lower back extension. Do my arms fall forward? One easy way to tell it here. If you can't see my ears at the top, I think my arms need to get even more back up, some pretty tight upper region. So if my arms are covering my ears at the top, and you see my ears at the bottom, arms fell forward. Last one, excessive forward lean. Does my torso go towards or over my knees? There. Last view is going to be posterior. So I did this thing called Dead December where I deadlifted every day. You guys are about to check out the games from that. No, I'm just kidding. So just so you can hear me on this one. All right, so I'm facing away from y'all, just pretend that. But what we're looking at here is going to be for any hip movement. So do my hips have a weight shift to the left? Whenever I go down, do I have an asymmetrical weight shift to the right? And it won't be as exaggerated as I'm doing now. Or we're looking at ankles again. We're getting the cheat and look back. So do I have any external, internal rotation, pronation, supination? All right? So go ahead and grab something to write because we're going to be writing this down. We're going to have 2 people come up. First is going to be Christian. Okay, so he's getting his feet shoulder width apart. Gig 'em. There we go. 10? 10 each way. So looking at ankles and knees here. Ankles and knees. DJ and Jordy in the back are going to be passing out assessment sheets, actually. Go ahead and pause. So these are NASM assessment sheets. This is what I use whenever I assess my clients. They have compensations outlined on them, pronation, supination, external rotation, all that. Thank you guys. All right, everybody got a sheet? Everybody ready? Yes? Okay. Christian's going to get ready. Arms up. There it is. So ankles and knees, looking for any movement here. So the knees track well. Look at the ankles. Mark it on your sheet if you see it. Make sure you're counting. Awesome. On the lateral, checkpoint here is lower back, arms fall forward. Eagle. Awesome. Every time, yo, every time. Clients love it. Checkpoints here as you move to the left, right, look at the hips. How are they tracking? Reach ease, reload, look at the ankles. Is there pronation, supination? There we go. Let's give them a round of applause. Overhead squats are hard, y'all. Overhead squats are hard. Okay. So, quick question before we pick apart his form and find out what compensations he had. Why do you think I have him doing 10 each way, 30 total, rather than 3 each way or 5 each way? Yes, sir.
Too exhausted, so you can see like where he is messing up. Because if he's fresh, you're not gonna see like where he's compensating or not compensating.
Exactly. We want to fatigue the client. We make him do, well, depending on their fitness level, yes. But with Christian, if I made him do 1 squat each way, he's going to have amazing form. He's fresh. His body is going to hide those compensations really well. I'm not going to get much, if anything, out of it. We want to fatigue the client, find those compensations so we know where he has dysfunction in his body. All right. So anterior ankles and knees, what did y'all find?
Pronation at the foot.
Pronation, yep. Right knee, okay. So I got feet turned out, that's external rotation, feet flattened, like Troy said. And then I actually have left knee moves inward. One thing I will say here is this is multiple assessments with Christian over the past weeks. Obviously I didn't magically type this up now. We may see some different things on him today. This is what I've seen in the past couple of weeks. So left knee valgus, he may have had some right today, but I definitely have seen left knee valgus. I know that's something that Christian is dealing with on his left knee, all right? So lateral, lower back, excessive forward lean, arms fall forward. What did, yep, which one?
The back goes forward.
Back goes forward, so excessive forward lean, yep. There we go. Anything else? Arms fall forward, exactly. Posterior, did his hips shift? No?
He has a strong
Butt weak, so the posterior toe? Okay. So I said both heels rise. Kind of saw it today. Definitely in the past I've seen it. We'll go over what that means. Both feet flat, and that's pronation again. And I actually saw a weight shift to the left. Yeah, okay. You're nodding yeah now. This is definitely something that it might have to do with that left knee valgus. Okay? So, programming, step 2.